first thing Eleanor Hart noticed was the silence. Not the peaceful, early morning kind that settled over her property like a soft blanket before the day began, but a hollow, wrong silence, the kind that pressed against her chest and made her breath hitch before her mind could even catch up. "Bennett!" she called, stepping out onto the dew-kissed grass behind her home. No answering bark. Her heart began to pound. "Bennett!" Louder this time, sharper. She scanned the yard, her eyes darting to the training ring, the shade trees, the open stretch near the fence line. That's when she saw it. The gate, slightly ajar. No, 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 no! Eleanor ran, her slippers slipping in the grass as she reached the gate and pushed it wide. Beyond it stretched miles of countryside, broken by winding roads and scattered ranch properties. Too much space, too many places for a dog, even a brilliantly trained one, to disappear. And Bennett wasn't just any dog. He was a champion, a sleek, perfectly groomed English setter with a coat like a brushed silk and eyes full of intelligence and trust. He was her pride, her career, her companion. They had spent years together, early mornings, late nights, competitions across the state. He didn't run off. He knew better, which made the emptiness all the more terrifying. Eleanor grabbed her phone with shaking hands and began dialings. Neighbors, local shelters, veterinary offices. Her voice trembled as she described him. White coat with chestnut speckles, blue collar, microchipped. By noon, she was driving slowly down every nearby road, scanning ditches, fields, and fences, calling his name until her throat burned. But Bennett was gone. 2 towns over, Ryan Calder didn't expect anything unusual that morning. He was halfway through repairing a fence line on a small property just outside of Fair Oaks when he heard rustling in the bush nearby. At first he figured it was a deer or maybe a coyote passing through, but when he looked up he froze. Standing there, just beyond the split in the trees, was one of the most beautiful dogs he had ever seen. The animal stood tall and poised, ears perked, tail held with an almost regal stillness. He didn't look frightened, just alert, observant. "Well, hey there," Ryan said, lowering his tools and stepping forward slowly. "You lost, buddy?" The dog didn't run. Instead, he approached cautiously, head slightly tilted, as if evaluating Ryan, just as much as Ryan was evaluating him. Up close, it was obvious. This wasn't a stray. Clean coat, perfect posture, expensive collar. Ryan crouched down, letting the dog sniff his hand. "You've got someone worried sick about you, don't you?" The dog wagged his tail once, softly. "Yeah," Ryan said with a small smile. "I thought so." The local veterinary clinic scanned the microchip within the hour. "Bennett Hart," the receptionist read aloud, "registered to Eleanor Hart." Ryan leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "You got a number?" She nodded, already calling. It rang once, twice, then, "Hello?" The voice on the other end was tight, breathless. "Hi, is this Eleanor Hart? This is Pine Ridge Veterinary Clinic. We believe we found your dog." There was a pause, a sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God," Eleanor whispered. "Bennett, is he okay? Where is he?" Ryan could hear the emotion, even from across the room. "He's here with us, ma'am," the receptionist said gently. "A gentleman brought him in. He seems healthy." "I'm coming," said Eleanor immediately. "I'll be there as fast as I can." Ryan stayed. He told himself it was just to make sure the dog got back safely, but as the minutes ticked by, he found himself glancing toward the door more and more than necessary. When it finally swung open, he knew immediately. Eleanor Hart didn't just walk into the room. She arrived in it, carrying with her a kind of quiet intensity. Her hair was pulled back hastily, a few strands escaping around her face. She wore jeans and a fitted jacket, practical but elegant in a way that suggested she didn't have to try very hard. But it was her eyes that caught him. They scanned the room desperately until they landed on the dog. "Bennett!" The setter sprang up, tail wagging wildly as Eleanor dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him. "Oh, you scared me," she murmured into his fur. "You scare me so much." Ryan felt like something shifted in his chest while he was watching them. That kind of love, unfiltered, immediate. It wasn't something you saw every day. After a moment, Eleanor looked up. Her gaze landed on Ryan. "You're the one who found him," she said. It wasn't a question. Ryan nodded. "Yeah. He wandered onto the property I was working on. Figured he didn't belong out there." She stood, brushing her hands over Bennett's back as if reassuring herself he was real. "Thank you. I don't even know how to begin to thank you." "You don't have to," Ryan said. "Just glad he's okay." She studied him for a moment, really studied him, and something in her expression softened. "Well," she said, "I'd still like to try." An hour later, they were sitting at Eleanor's kitchen table. Bennett lay at her feet, perfectly content, as if his brief adventure had never happened. The house itself reflected her life, elegant but functional. Ribbons and framed photos from dog shows lined the walls. Trophies gleamed on a nearby shelf. Ryan took it all in, impressed despite himself. "You weren't kidding," he said. "He's kind of a big deal." Eleanor smiled faintly. "He's my best partner. We've been competing together for years." "What happened this morning?" She sighed, wrapping her hands around her coffee mug. "The gate must not have latched properly. I checked it. I always check it." But she shook her head. "All it takes is one mistake." Ryan nodded. "He handled himself pretty well out there." "He's trained to," she said, "but that doesn't mean he's safe." For a moment they sat in comfortable silence. Then Ryan said, "You look like you were about to tear the world apart when you walked into that clinic." Eleanor laughed softly. "I probably would have." He met her gaze. "Yeah, I believe that." Something lingered in the air between them after that. Something unspoken, but unmistakable. What was supposed to be a simple task, a simple thank you to have some coffee, turned into hours. They talked about everything. Ryan told her about his work, repairing properties, doing odd jobs, preferring the quiet rhythm of physical labor over anything else. Eleanor told him about the world of competitive dog shows, the travel, the pressure, the precision. "You ever get tired of it?" he asked. "Sometimes," she admitted. "It can be intense. Everything has to be perfect. Every detail matters." Ryan glanced down at Bennett, who had rolled onto his back, completely relaxed. "Doesn't seem like he's stressing about it." Eleanor smiled. "He loves it, and I love working with him, but it's not always easy." Ryan leaned back in his chair. "You don't seem like someone who does things halfway." "I don't," she said simply. Their eyes met again. This time, neither of them looked away. Over the next few days, Ryan found reasons to pass through Eleanor's area more and more often than strictly necessary. And Eleanor, despite her structured, carefully planned life, found herself hoping he would. It started small, a quick visit to check on Bennett, an offer to reinforce the gate just to be safe, another cup of coffee. But each time the conversations grew longer, easier. Ryan brought a kind of steadiness into Eleanor's life that she hadn't realized she was missing. He didn't care about titles or trophy. He didn't see her as Eleanor Hart, top competitor. He just saw her. And Eleanor in turn found something grounding in Ryan's presence. He wasn't impressed by her world, but he respected it. And he listened in a way that made her feel understood, not evaluated. One evening as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in shades of golden amber, they sat outside near the training ring. Bennett trotted happily nearby, occasionally glancing back as if checking in. "You know," Ryan said, "if he hadn't gotten out..." Eleanor looked at him. "We wouldn't have met." "Yeah." She smiled softly. "I've thought about that." Ryan shifted slightly, his expression more serious. Funny how some things that feel like a disaster at the time can turn into something else. Eleanor studied him for a moment. "Something better," she suggested. He met her gaze. "Yeah, something like that." The first time he kissed her, it wasn't dramatic. No grand gesture, no sweeping declaration. Just a quiet moment on her front porch after having spent another evening that had stretched longer than either of them planned. Ryan hesitated just slightly, as if giving her time to step back. She didn't. Instead, Eleanor closed the distance herself. The kiss was soft at first, curious, almost tentative, then deeper, certain. When they pulled apart, neither of them spoke right away. They didn't need to. Months passed, the rhythm of their life shifted, gradually intertwining. Ryan became a steady presence, not just at Eleanor's home, but in her world. He helped with training setups, traveled with her to a few competitions, stood at ringside watching with quiet pride as Bennett performed flawlessly. And Ellen found herself stepping into Ryan's world too, visiting job sites, learning to appreciate the simple satisfaction of a day's work completed by hand. They balanced each other in ways neither had expected. On the day Bennett won his biggest title yet, Eleanor didn't look at the judges. She looked at Ryan, and the smile he gave her, steady, proud, full of something deeper than admiration, meant more than any ribbon ever could. One evening, nearly a year after Bennett's escape, they stood by the same gate where it had all began. Now reinforced, secured, impossible to accidentally leave open. Ryan rested his hand on the latch. Funny, he said, this thing caused a lot of trouble. Eleanor stepped beside him. It also caused something else. He turned to her. Yeah? Her eyes were warm. She smiled. It brought you to me. Ryan reached for her hand, lacing his finger through hers. Best accident that ever happened. Bennett barked once, as if in agreement. Eleanor laughed, leaning into Ryan as the sun dipped below the horizon. And the first time in a long time, everything in her carefully structured world felt exactly, perfectly right.